Major funding for Theater Corner is provided by UC San Diego. And by the Westgate Hotel, La Jolla Alcohol Research Incorporated, Signet Theater, and viewers like you. Thank you. Hi, welcome to Theater Corner. I'm your host, Michael Taylor. As a lifelong theater enthusiast and a board member for one of the top theaters in the country, I've seen firsthand the positive effects that diversity and inclusion can have on the stage and the theater seats. This interview series was created as a way to share my passion for theater and promote diverse voices throughout the national theater scene. We sit down with some of the top professionals in the entertainment industry to discuss training, careers, advice for young actors, and how to make theater matter to more people. Today I had the opportunity to talk with actors Dulé Hill and Daniel J. Watts, who both played roles in the world premiere musical Lights Out, Nat King Cole. You may recognize Dulé Hill from his television appearances in the shows Suits, Psych, The West Wing, and the film Holes. We had a great conversation about his performance as Nat King Cole, his background in tap dance, and what it was like to portray an American icon. So silence your cell phones, folks. You're entering Theater Corner.
Ready? Let's go.
Brother. Oh, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
So very nice for you to be here. This is a long time coming.
That's right. You see?
So you're here performing as Nat King Cole and Lights Out, Nat King Cole. What does it mean to you to play this particular role?
Oh, man. I mean, the idea of stepping into Mr. Cole's iconic suit is unfathomable in my mind. I'm still pinching myself. It's a daunting task, but it's also a humbling task to be able to bring his story to the stage that is not only reflective on his life, but also very perceptive of where we are today.
Mm. And so I was here opening night, and his twin daughters were here.
Right.
Tell me about your interaction with them after they saw this performance.
For myself, their blessing was all that I needed. I mean, yes, Nat King Cole is an icon. Yes, he is a trailblazer. Yes, he is a groundbreaker. But he also is a father, and he also is a brother. And when you start telling someone's personal story or a story connected to someone personally, you want to make sure you get it right. And for myself, I would not want to be telling a story that was not blessed by his lineage, his offspring, his children. So the fact that they came to see the show opening night and afterwards they came up to me and said, yes, this is the show that needs to be told. This is the story that needs to be out there. We give y'all a complete blessing. This night was unforgettable in every way. And it really moved me that they gave that anointing on this project. When we did the project at the People's Light a year and a half ago, Freddie Cole came, who was Nat King Cole's brother. And he did the same thing. The fact that when he gave his blessing too. Right. Now that I have those three components, now I feel like the wind is at our back, so it's time for us to run forward.
Talk a little bit about getting ready for a role like this, because you truly like embodied the character of Nat King Cole. What are the special things that you did? I mean, other than watching footage.
I tried not to be too heady about approach. It really is what happens organically. What things am I able to embrace within my being to then be able to continuously embody when I hit the stage. yes, I mean, there's not a lot of stuff out there on Mr. Cole's point of view of his own life because he
Right.
died so young. So for me, it really was listening to a lot of his music, listening to a lot of his interviews. I really had just submerged myself in all things Nat King Cole. If I was on the plane, I was listening to him. If I was going to sleep, I was listening to him. If I was driving in my car, I was listening to him. If I was tap dancing, I was listening to him. Any chance that I had to put something on related to him, I was doing that. So that alone, I would just try to take in what resonated inside of myself. I didn't really try to pinpoint exactly how does he say this word or how does he say that word. It was more the essence of his energy that I tried to embrace with my own to then put on myself to then have the Nat King Cole on this stage, because I didn't want it to be a imitation. I didn't want to do a caricature of him.
Right.
And it's always evolving. I'm still constantly trying to pull back the layers, to merge more of my soul with Mr. Cole's, to bring the performance each night. Now, from a technical standpoint, I did get together with Liz Himmelstein, who's a speech coach that I've worked with for
Okay.
years on different projects. And early on in the process, I got together with her just to kind of fine tune some things, and we kind of just to approach it from a technical standpoint a little bit.
Right.
And then I got together with my man Wilkie Ferguson, who's a wonderful performer and artist in his own right, but also a vocal coach, to work on the songs and spend time with the songs, because I didn't feel that this was a role that I could just pick up the week before
Oh, no.
and then step into it and say, oh, I'm ready.
Right.
It takes a lot of homework beforehand, just leading up to even the rehearsals, so that by the time you come to rehearsals, you're ready to rehearse. And then the rehearsals, that's a whole other process. But for me, it was a matter of consistency, spending time, being intimate with his spirit, really, with his energy, and really asking for that revelation to touch things that I cannot see or I cannot hear, if that makes any sense.
Right.
It really, for me, it really has been like a spiritual process of, Father above, give me that insight that I don't have. Give me that. Just speak to me about that thing that I'm missing.
Right.
There's certain things, like, let me have that essence. Mr. Cole, speak to me through it. Let me know what I'm supposed to be bringing to the stage right now, so that your story can be told in the right way.
And it definitely shows. I mean, it's a phenomenal performance.
Thank you very much.
Seriously, it really is.
Thank you very much.
And talking to Coleman, I mean, he talks about this would be a completely different show. I mean, the casting with you and Daniel, it would be something totally different, because you're bringing this tap ability.
Right.
And I got to say, that was a phenomenal tap performance right in the middle of the show. I mean, he had a standing ovation in the middle of the show after that routine. I mean, how does that hit you?
It blows you away, really. It really. Here's the thing: in the middle of the show, it doesn't really hit me, if I'm being honest. In the middle of the show, because in the middle of the show, I'm so connected to Sammy, or Daniel Watts, and what we're doing, and then on to the next moment. Because there's something that, like with this show, once the show starts, it goes.
Yeah.
There isn't really a lot of time for, at least for myself, to just take back and take it all in. I take it all in once I take my final bow.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, in the show, like in the performance itself, I didn't really have a time to really take that in, but afterwards, it's like, wow, people really received and dug the whole journey that we've portrayed here tonight.
I had an idea that there was some tap, but I didn't realize it was something like that. I mean, my natural reaction was get on my feet. Really.
Dig it.
And so it's amazing.
I mean, for myself, I have to say, this is a story about Nat King Cole, and it's a story about icons like Nat King Cole, and it's a story about people in the world today. But as an artist and as a performer, there is me tipping my hat to Mr. Cole, but there's also me tipping my hat, because of this piece, to Gregory Hines, to Harold Nicholas. Because for myself, as Dulé Hill, the artist, they are my direct link heroes. The reason why I am an actor is because I was a tap dancer, and I saw that Gregory Hines could do it.
Right.
I saw that Harold Nicholas could do it. And not only were they tap dancers and actors, they were also singers. So to be in this show and to be able to use a wider breadth of the gifts that God has blessed me with all in one piece, it really is, for myself, paying homage to and really bowing myself in prayer to you know, my brothers who have gone on, my elders who have gone on, my fathers who have gone on, Gregory Hines and Harold Nicholas.
So you started tapping at the age of
At the
three.
age of 3.
Yeah. So your mother ran a dance.
She was a ballet teacher at a dance school in East Orange, New Jersey, named Marie Wildey School of Dance.
Wow. Do you have any early vivid memories of developing this talent?
I remember being afraid to perform, even at the dance school, and my mom and the dance school owner, I call her my Aunt Marie, she's passed away now, Marie Wildey, they had to bribe me with a blow pop. Because I was in the back room hiding under a table. And I still vividly remember that being underneath there, not wanting to perform. And they said, okay, well, if you go out there and you do it, then you get a blow pop.
Oh, geez.
I said, all right. And I was like, tap, 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 tap. You know what I mean? Yep.
Oh, man. And so one of your earliest breakout was
The Tap Dance Kid.
the tap dance kid.
That's what got me into this whole business.
Okay.
The Tap Dance Kid came to my school, the dance school, looking for kids who could sing and dance. I auditioned, and then the next thing I know, I was understudying Savion Glover on Broadway. And then right after that, I did the lead role on the national tour with Harold Nicholas from the Nicholas Brothers.
Right.
And that's what started to open my eyes of this greater thing of show business, because I remember being on tour, and one time while we were on tour, the whole cast got together and we just watched all of Harold's old movies. You know, all of his dancing movies with he and his brother. And to be there next to Harold at 10 years old, and he's telling me different things about it, and watching it on film and realizing like, oh wow, this is like this. Well, he's a kid, and he's a kid in that one,
Okay.
and he's a kid like me, and
Right.
he's on film, and here he is now. It started to really make connection to me.
There's another thing I noticed is watching you on stage is your stage presence, and you're extremely comfortable, and so but you've done like tons of television. What is it about theater? I mean, it's like you're at home up there on that stage.
It's funny that you just said that, because I was going to say stage is my home. Being that I started on stage, even if it's just going to dance school and performing at the recital, my first professional jobs being on stage at the Minskoff Theater in New York, and then the national tour. And most of the things that I did when I was younger was theater, at the Goodspeed Opera House, at the Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey. My first affinity is for the stage. It brings me back to a base. It brings me back to a foundation. It always challenges me to dig deeper. I feel like when you do the stage, it really sharpens you. For myself anyway, just having to be here every day and do it every day and find a way to make it work, and having to do it without any filter.
No safety net.
Yeah, there's something about, like, I feel like I'm in training when I'm on the stage. I love the connection to the audience. I love the energy inside of the house when things are going well and when things are not going well. I love when they're affected. You know, I love when you're dancing and your legs are tired, but you got to figure out a way to make it work.
Right.
It's like, come on, legs. We got to do something. You know, so I mean, for me, the stage is home, and I think being that I started doing that as a kid, it's always going to be my first love, and probably always going to be the place that I love being at the most.
Alongside Dulé is his co-star, Daniel J. Watts. In this performance, Daniel is playing the unforgettable role of Sammy Davis Jr. Daniel is best known for his performance in the hit musical Hamilton, as well as his portrayal of Ike Turner in Tina, the Tina Turner musical. We had a chance to talk about his upbringing in tap dance, his childhood heroes, and at the end of the interview, I gifted him a special present as a show of my appreciation for bringing such an iconic character back to life. How you doing, brother?
Great, how are you doing?
You're currently performing in Lights Out, Nat King Cole.
Yes.
And you're playing the phenomenal role of Sammy Davis Jr. My goodness, brother.
What was I thinking?
And it's an amazing performance. And I was here for opening nights, and I'm sitting there wondering what could possibly have gone into preparing for a role like that?
Oh man, on one hand, I like to say I've been preparing for it my whole life. Just didn't know it. Sammy's been a huge inspiration of mine. I like to say idol of mine, at least since I was 6 years old. He was the caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland. I was like, this guy who all of a sudden started tap dancing and singing. That's pretty cool. And then I think I got revisited to him in 4th grade when a substitute teacher came. And the first day we gave him the substitute business, you know. And then the second day he came, he brought a cassette tape of Sammy Davis Jr. And he was like, I think you were like this, and gave it to me. And I don't know what I did that first day that made him bring in that tape the next day, but then it stuck with me. After that, I was pretty much just always kind of paying attention to him. And he's just always influenced me in some form or fashion.
There's some amazing tap dancing that you guys pull off in this play. Where did you start with the tap dancing?
I started tapping I was in 10th grade, 15 years old. I ended up in a musical called Gypsy, and I had to tap dance, and I didn't know how to tap dance. So I was faked it through that show, and I was like, Mom, I think I want to keep doing this. And she let me take, and it was this thing that I was finding that there was more in it than just this dance. There was something like connected, like deep within, like this idea of making rhythms and percussion. And it was also ended up being an outlet for me at the same time. I found that I would just go downstairs and tap dance in the basement at like 4 a.m. There was this urge to put on my shoes and just go shuffle around and make noise, sounds, something. It's always feel like I'm resurrecting something, so to speak. So tap dancing is a love.
And just how much footage you think you've watched? Because I noticed that there was, you had down just even the mannerisms.
Sam?
Yeah.
Oh man, I've definitely watched hours and hours and hours of footage between his Colgate performance when him and his father and his uncle, the Wood Meston Trio, came back to the Colgate Hour for the first time. And he's drumming on there and he's doing impressions. And I found some footage of him doing some impressions back in the early 50s, Sweet Charity. Like I can just think of just anything Sammy I've probably ingested in some way. So definitely hours and hours of footage just because I love him so much, just to like check him out. I never realized it would be for this. I never in a million years did I think I'm gonna play Sammy Davis Jr.
How important was the energy between you and Dulé, who plays Nat King Cole? Because you guys, that's a partnership up there on the stage.
Yeah.
How important you think that played into the energy of it?
Oh, a huge part of it. When we both found out about the project, both of us started texting each other. Hey, you doing this piece? You gonna do this piece? And in a similar way that Sammy was to Nat, Dulé has been for me in a way that, Nat was there before Sammy was. Like,
Right.
When when Dulé and I did After Midnight, I was auditioning for TV for the first time. And I was asking him for advice. Like, hey, I went in for this audition. It felt this way. And he was like, nah, you should just go in there with a bold choice. He kind of knocked down doors in a way. He started TV and film when I was still in like middle school, high school.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
he had done this thing in New York. No, I wasn't. I'm not. He's not that much older than me. High school. But he had, he came. He did the Broadway thing in New York, and then he moved to LA to start becoming more bi-coastal. And that's something that I've always wanted to do. And I realized like, I can actually talk to this guy about that process. And both being men of color, there's similar trials and tribulations that we've gone through and can still go through today. So it's like we have that similar dynamic. Just like Nat, Dulé is the epitome of grace. Dulé is known around Hollywood to being a nice guy. He's a nice guy. You don't hear anything, rumors about Dulé Hill,
Right.
negative press about Dulé Hill, because he approaches things with grace. You might hear some things about Daniel J. Watson being a firecracker, in the same way of Sam. So there's a little bit of typecasting going on. I would say a lot of bit of typecasting, but it's been great to just, he's like a big brother to me.
Well, you brought up Broadway. Well, you spent a significant chunk of your life performing on Broadway. In particular, you performed in Hamilton.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Hamilton was crazy in a great way. It was musical theater in the latter 40 years has been trying to find its way back into popular culture. Sometimes every once in a while something sneaks in versus like years ago, it was popular culture. It pushed culture. As television and film got bigger, Broadway is kind of, a novelty, so to speak. Hamilton and Lynn specifically figured out a way to crack that code that it became this thing that nobody was ready for. Like it's a global phenomenon. And, it's all these different things are happening, but it's also 3 hours of a job. Wow. It's work. It's fun, but it's work. But also being a part of like theatrical history, And American history is something you can't put a price tag on that. Like you can't value that.
Right.
It's sort of evaluate that. Yeah.
So you made your way to television as well. The Last OG.
Yeah.
She's Gotta Have It, that TV series. But there's something that calls you back to the stage, though. So since you've done both now, what is it with the stage that speaks to you?
The thing about stage is that there's this immediate, automatic partnership that you have with the audience. There's an agreement, you know. There's an agreement that we have to this moment, to this time, and you also understand this is live theater. Something might go wrong here. You know, we don't have the option to say, you know what, cut, let's do that again and like splice it together and put together this perfect polished thing. There's this element of like, oh wow, this is happening before my very eyes. You know, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. Not to say that that work doesn't go into TV and film, but you know, it's precarious. There's a risk involved that I think, you know, when it's done right, it can be really, really exhilarating.
Could you think of a moment where you kind of had a close call, or maybe you had to work and play through? I know I've seen some mistakes happen, but
sure,
the actors are like, you know, pick it back up. And...
Yeah, that happens all the time. You know, the beauty is when you don't know, when the audience doesn't know. But you know, I've had times where like I've been in the middle of a tap solo and then been legs up, you know, because something happened. My legs are in the air, and you just have to figure out how to get your legs back, your feet back underneath you. You know, words will leave you. Just something about the repetition, or if you just get off, if you let something distract you for a second, those words will leave you, and you have to find your way back. And sometimes that's fun or not fun, depending on the story you're trying to tell. But yeah, it's always that. There's always this thing.
So being on a stage with others is one thing, but you've done a one-man show, storytelling. You know, talk about that, because that's a little different. You're on the spot, and there's no supporting actors or anything.
There's no help. Yeah, I have a show called The Jam. It's called The Jam because my great-grandmother used to make jam from scratch. And what she couldn't eat herself, you know, you can't make it a jar at a time, you have to make it in bulk, 6 to 8 jars. So she'd make herself a jar, and then she'd give the rest away. So for me, I've been writing stuff, raps, poems, stream of consciousness since I was like 13, just as an outlet for myself. And over time, I just accumulated all this material, and I was like, I got to do something with it. It's just rotting, so to speak. And there's a line from a show called Jelly's Last Jam, which it's really weird how all this is connected. Gregory Hines played Jelly Roll Morton in this show on Broadway. And there's a line that says, "We're jamming with Jelly tonight." And that line was we danced to that song in the very first recital that I tap danced in. And that line has always stuck with me. And it was like, oh, that's an interesting play on words, jamming with jelly. What's the difference between jam and jelly? I looked it up. And jelly is essentially the runoff of jam. Jam is the fruit and the seeds and the pulp and the flesh of it all, you know, that you can kind of just make it of itself. Jelly is without all that good stuff. So I felt like I have this jam of my own, this flesh, this soul, this thing where I share bits and pieces of myself with others. And I hope that they can see themselves and kind of, we can focus on our social similarities opposed to our differences. That's what the jam is. So I get on stage and I go.
And so with all your experience, and especially stage, we have a lot of young actors and theater students that watch Theater Corner. What piece of advice would you impart to those persons?
I would tell you to dream as big as possible. Dreaming is free. A really good friend of mine told me that. Alton Fitzgerald White is an incredible actor, told me to dream big. And it's free. It's free. You can do as much as you want. And, you know, I think there's a difference between dreams and visions. Dreams are these things that we feel are impossible and unattainable, versus visions are these things that we know that we can do. They might be terrifying, but just grab a hold of your visions, your dreams, and turn them into visions, and just go for them. There's nothing stopping you but you. Go get them.
Very good. And before I let you go, I told you on opening night I had a special gift for you.
He did, yes.
Is it McChrystal? Is you? There we go. I'm a real huge Sammy Davis Jr. fan, and I'm serious about that. And so when I was watching you do this thing, actually bring this guy back to life, and I was just completely blown away. So I've had this Ebony magazine since 1990. This is like a special edition
I know.
and so I figured, as a show of my appreciation and to honor your talents and your efforts, I wanna give that to you.
Oh, come on. I was literally looking at purchasing this on eBay.
Oh, really?
Days ago. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Oh, man.
No, so please accept that and just keep doing.
This is,
I really appreciate you and appreciate your talents. And so what you're doing up there is, for old heads like myself, it's phenomenal.
You got me with this one. I don't even want to touch it good. I want to put it back in the plastic. Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
As the great August Wilson once said, all you need in the world is love and laughter. That's all anybody needs, to have love in one hand and laughter in the other. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Michael Taylor, and we'll see you on the next episode of Theater Corner.
Support for this program comes from the KPBS Explore Local Content Fund, supporting new ideas and programs for San Diego.
Watch the full interviews and more at www.theatercorner.org.